A few things that you might not know about hemp. Although it never was the big ticket item in the state of Kansas that a lot of us maybe thought it was. I mean, if you go to the state capitol building and look in the rotunda, you're going to see that cannabis is depicted even more prominently than weed is. And that's saying something. But the truth is, after about 1850, when when hemp was the #1 cash crop in the U.S., it basically tailed off and was pretty much killed out in the U.S. Not so much due to the Hemp Act, but it actually died off a lot before that because we won the Spanish-American War. And a lot of the hemp production moved to the Philippines, which we acquired after the war. But it was pretty much finished off when three guys got together. These three guys were William Randolph Hearst, Harry Anslinger, and DuPont, who you might know from a chemical company. They figured out that the only way that they were going to make rayon and these other chemicals and these other products profitable is if they didn't have competition from hemp. Well, given what we're seeing today, and if you look around you, look at what the environment's trying to tell us. Our aquifers are being sucked down at an unbelievable rate. If you look at the Ogallala Aquifer in western Kansas, in 60 years or so, by 2068, a third of our wells out there will no longer be producing water. You won't even be able to get anything out of them. And in addition to that, 75% of those that are left will be under high restriction. Now, people think that, well, if it starts raining again, these are going to refill. This is not necessarily the case. You've got two types of aquifers. One is a closed aquifer. In other words, this water has been there since time began. The Ice Age, that's when it got there. It cannot be recharged. The Ogallala parts of that is one of those aquifers. So we've got to protect what we've got. If you watch the newspapers, you see a lot of other problems that we're having with the water. You can't go swimming in a lot of lakes right now. These lakes have blue-green algae blooms. It's not just the heat, and it's not just the low water that's causing these problems. It's agricultural runoff. That algae has to have something to eat. The phosphates and nitrates that we're putting onto our fields is being washed off. Well, if you want to talk biofuels production, instead of growing corn, instead of growing soybeans, both of which require enormous amounts of water. Take corn, 3,000 gallons an acre per day is what it takes. Okay? That's a lot of water. If you've got a 160-acre center pivot irrigation system, which you see them out there on the highway, anytime you drive around, it's there. There's all kinds of new ones. We've even got farmers just last week that popped up in the news for running their meters backwards on their center pivots. Wow. It's happening. They're feeling the pinch. Now, I'm not down on farmers. I grew up on a farm. I know what it takes to survive. I know what these guys have to do. I'm saying what we need to do is pass a measure to give them another tool. Give them an option. Give them a way to make a good, decent, cash crop that they can sell instead of pumping all these chemicals onto our croplands that are going to end up in our waterways, and instead of doing the kind of things with our water that we need to save for us. With hemp, you've got something that grows, it's drought resistant. It's basically pesticide and herbicide free. You space it close enough, it chokes out all the weeds around it. There's only 8 known pests. The biggest pest that hemp has is a two-legged. That's it. That's it. I have to wonder, why is it? One of our biggest arguments people think is, well, it's the potheads are going to get it. But people, I don't know how to tell you this, but if you don't know by now, if you go out and smoke hemp, you're going to get one hell of a headache and no buzz. Likewise, if you try to grow hemp or I mean grow good kind bud anywhere close to hemp, what happens? You end up with some really expensive hemp, and that's it. So why doesn't the DEA, instead of sending their black suited thugs out to go raid pot plants, how about they just drop a bag of hemp seeds?
It's Monsanto and DuPont. There's a lot of money up in cotton.
That's true. But we got to break that, we got a better product. You got something that's more insulative, so it can be softer than cotton, it's stronger than cotton, it'll outwear cotton. Levi's jeans, very first pair of Levi's jeans were made out of hemp.
Hemp sails on the USS Constitution
still. We are about the only country left that does not allow hemp production. If you go to buy a new car, do me a favor. First thing you need to do is pop open the glove box. Look at it. If it's made out of plastic, it's probably hemp plastic, and it's made in China. Let's bring those jobs home. Right now in St. John, there's a biofuels plant that was never built. That plant would have employed 30 people at the plant, another 75 people in the surrounding area in supporting jobs. That wasn't built because the price of soybeans went out the roof. One of the guys that owns part of that plant is Representative Mitch Holmes. I think what we need to do is start sending him a few letters, make a few phone calls. He's running for the Senate this year out in that area. He himself, that one person, if he'd just stand up, he could put 100 people to work in his own hometown. It's that simple. That's all we got to do. But it's going to take more than that to get it to really move. You guys are going to have to get on the phone. We saw when we went to Topeka to talk to our legislators, we saw what the effects of a letter writing campaign could do. We would not have had our hearing last year on medical marijuana if it hadn't have been for each one of you people out there writing and calling. We can do the same thing with this. We need to call. You need to write. Not once, not twice. Every single time you think about it. Pick up the phone. Write somebody. Get your buddies. Talk to them. Everyone has got to get involved. I'm not saying that hemp is going to save us from ourselves, but it could. We can eat it. It's the only product. It's the only plant out there that the human being can survive on alone. You can survive on hemp. Where the old bread and water type thing, as long as the bread's made out of hemp, you got it made. You're going to live, and you're going to live well. All of your natural body is going to be all right. Very soon, we hope to bring legislation up. We want to see everybody help us with this. Please get on our website. Get on our Facebook page. Facebook page is Kansans for Agricultural and Business Revival. The website is kanshempyes.org. Hopefully, we can make it, and we can make it happen soon. It's going to take us all. Thanks.
Well, I'm from Kansas City. My name's Jonathan Dine. I'm actually the Libertarian candidate for the United States Senate. The thing I like about marijuana is that it's a peaceful, honest activity. So the thing I see wrong with the war on drugs is it criminalizes peaceful people. It also creates a black market where the profits are inflated so much it makes it worth killing over. So by legalization of marijuana, it would remove some of these ill problems we have, as well as stopping the criminalizing of kids, giving them felonies, kicking them down the wrong direction. It's easier to get marijuana with prohibition than it would be without. Yeah, because if you look at, for example, alcohol, you take 100 high school kids and you ask them how many of them could get you a six-pack of beer in an hour. But a couple of them would probably raise their hand. Because you require an ID, it's regulated, you have to go to a store that's authorized to sell it. You ask the same 100 kids who could get you a joint in a half an hour, and about 90% of them will raise their hand. It's readily available. It makes it easier to get other drugs, too, because If you go to you got to get your pot, you got to go to the same guy who sells your cocaine, sells your methamphetamine, you know, and making it legal would actually make it safer for children, make it so that you have an age limit, 18, 21, something like that, make it a little more regulated.
This left-right paradigm that we live in, what about that?
Well, I completely agree with you. The Demopublicans are really the same. It's not the left versus the right, it's you versus the state. The us versus them mentality of the Democrats and Republicans perpetuates the two-party system by making beating the other team more important than the candidate themselves, more important than the policies or the actual ideals. So now it's no longer who's the best candidate, but what team are you on? Who do you play for? And I'm going to beat your team, not what are you going to do for the country.
Right. But how do you think by participating in the same government that you rail against, how do you think that'll change anything?
Well, I'm looking at a revolution in a peaceful way. I'm looking at a revolution through the ballot box by electing a new generation of leaders, people who think differently, especially libertarian politicians who kind of encompass some of the good qualities from both parties. I'm socially liberal, fiscally conservative, so I want the government to stay out of your bedroom as well as your wallet. You know, I want to balance the budget, I want marriage equality, and I want to legalize marijuana.
Decriminalize those things that have the least amount of impact should be like taken into consideration and said, well, there's an exception here.
Well, the term crime is just very the term crime is very wrong because there is no malice intent. There's no criminal action. You're not trying to rip anybody off. You're not trying to harm anybody. It's a vice, not a crime. Vote dying this November.
Until we rock that stage, pass it all around till we all get played. Gonna raise the dead.